Questions demand answers and proof. What's routinely channeled is media lies. It's the best tool to manipulate your mind. It's propaganda for money or corruption that makes journalists and broadcasters ventriloquist dummies. Can't you see that they made us control slaves? Pay taxes but can't get our roads paid. Hitting potholes, assholes, fix the road. They're stealing our money right from under our nose. Extraterrestrials, they show UFOs. An alien invasion will be the next hoax. Right now it's terrorism, they control.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm Dave Hooper, and I've got my good friend Dave DeBiasi and Eric Shaltis here. How you doing, man?
What's up?
What's
I'm
up,
good.
Dave?
Do you guys have a good week?
So far, so good, man.
Always.
Really?
No.
No.
I was gonna say, man, I'm Mr. Positive over here.
No, but I did have a good week.
Tonight we're going to be talking. We're going to go more deeply into CERN and maybe some of the other advanced technologies that are out there that seem to be shaping our world outside of the view of the public domain. And I wanted to throw a couple of shout-outs as usual. First of all, my the ones near and dear to my heart, ae911truth.org. Without those guys, I'm looking at stock quotes right now, and that's about it. And another one, a good friend of mine, Claudio Marti, IamTheFaceOfTruth.com. If you've ever seen the banners on Facebook with big yellow letters of your country like USA or Canada, that is what I think is one of the most powerful campaigns out there, and that is primarily directed at 9/11 Truth, which for me obviously is a highly noble cause. Anything you want to say so far, Dave?
Not really, man. I think I'm pumped for the show. I want to get into the CERN thing some more. I had a lot of people come back with good feedback and said, made the comment that we basically just scratched the surface of this.
Same here. That's why, we switched. We originally, so I'm going to talk to the story behind it, but because of that, and I had the same thing. I had a lot of folks saying, I want to know more about CERN. What is, some people haven't even heard of CERN before, which, that was, I guess, surprising to me. But when you're in the middle of the muck all the time, you get familiar with these things. You don't realize, what's going on in the minds of, I guess, quote unquote, regular folks.
Sure, yeah.
So before we get into that stuff, I was just a couple things. Make sure to remind everyone it is not down the conventional hole. It is down the rabbit hole. As always, do your own research. The names we throw out, the institutions, I want you to look them up for yourselves. It means a lot more if you see it with your own eyes, because there are no more secrets, just ignorance. So you can choose to ignore it for now. Quotes of the week. I've got 4 of them this week. And we were just talking outside, Dave, because this one kind of plays into it. First one I want to mention was from Mark Twain. And this one popped up like 3 or 4 times to me this week. And the quote is this: "It is easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled."
Yeah, I've heard that.
That one absolutely applies to us. Here's another one that I was just feeling it this week. The next 2, actually. And they're both out of France, circa, middle 1700s. The first one I'm going to give you is from a French lawyer, politician. He was a well-known figure in the French Revolution, Maximilien Robespierre. He said, "The secret of freedom lies in educating people, whereas the secret of tyranny is in keeping them ignorant." Could not be more true. And then his writing buddy, Voltaire, who is a writer, philosopher, playwright. I'm sure we've all heard the name. And I guess I felt this one personally, and maybe you have too, or you will soon. And that is, "It is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong."
Yeah. How true is that?
Yeah, and some of the way these things just are timeless, you'll find those in that 401 Quotes book that's coming out in a few weeks. And the last one I'm going to leave you with, and maybe I've thrown this one out there before, but it's also from the book. And I guess it's also just close to my heart. It's actually one that I'm putting my name on, and it's, "If you don't know you are in a spiritual war, you are losing badly." All right, moving on. So I had 2 stories I wanted to share with you. I have had a good week. However, I had the worst day of my quote-unquote conspiratorial path, journey, road, whatever you want to call it, a little over a week ago. I'm not going to mention any names, but the wife of a friend of mine left a comment on my Facebook. And it was not just a regular comment. You know, I had written something along the lines, in fact, this was the day that I Am the Face of Truth had put together this awesome, cool, like, banner of a bunch of things that, you know, that we'd been doing, and they sent it to me, and I put it up on Facebook, and I was with my son, and he walked into the room, and he's like, "What are you watching?" And I happened to be watching a video of some children in Syria being bombed. These are, you know, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-, 5-year-olds. Just, it was the war that had hit home in Syria, and it was, a lot of it are, you know, the NATO or what's left of NATO troops that are, you know, over there. It was our weapons that were causing this harm or that were being delivered, not necessarily by American forces, but certainly by British forces and some others. And there were definitely some graphic scenes. It was like a 5 or 6 minute video. I don't know if you even saw it on my...
Yeah, I actually watched it about not even probably halfway through. And for me...
Moving, hard to...
I had to stop watching it. I have a soft spot for the kids, so...
And you also had mentioned that, and I wasn't even thinking, because that had pulled up some reminders of your brother.
Yeah,
so,
it was just
and
not...
here
yeah.
I just brought it up again.
Not
like
a big deal.
Idiot,
it's fine.
so.
It's good. I'm good.
So my son walks in, and he's like, "What are you watching?" And I thought about it for a second, and I went back to about a 30-second span of the video where it wasn't really graphic, where they were showing some kids basically crying, and some of them had blood on their face. I mean, some parts of that video were, I thought, overly... Look, first of all, it's real.
It's happening.
And it's true.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not lost on me that my son is young, but I want him to grow up to appreciate our freedom, not to take it for granted, because it is it is our taking it for granted is why we're probably going to lose it. And I also firmly believe that in our lifetime, maybe even sooner, we are, you know, what we're looking at on a video in Syria is going to be happening here in this country. In fact, you know, like, again, I've seen things I just shouldn't have seen. I'm not talking about this video. I'm talking about the documents and plans of what some of the evil cabal that we're literally up against have in the works for us. You know, and we don't say this stuff to be fear-mongers or anything like that. Certainly, if you read our Constitution, which almost no one has, or, well, just starting there, the Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, the forming documents of this country, they really call on the American citizens to, in a sense, be watchdogs. They also ask our media to be watchdogs. In fact, that's why it's the only business that is protected by the Constitution. And once you get a peek behind the veil, you know that, I mean, not only are they not, quote unquote, doing their job, they're actually, they've flipped. You know, they've turned on the American people. They actually suppress the truth. And not saying, like, you know, Anderson Cooper knows he's lying when he reads a press release, but he sure as heck doesn't do any due diligence to make sure what he's been given to read is accurate or not. And, you know, that system of misinformation, which is what you get much more on mainstream media, is, I mean, it is at the heart of the, in a lot of the crumbling of the pillars of this country. So, so yeah, I feel like there's a calling to be a watchdog about this, to at least alert people. I mean, there's other people out there that carry guns and join militias, and there are other people that are activists that march on. They're all part of the same army, I guess, and that is, in a sense, the army of the people, if you want to call it that, because, you know, from once you're inside of this, it's not hard to see that most, if not all, of our institutions, in a way, have really turned on us. Like, they don't care. They don't entertain some of these, what I think are hyper-important subjects. I mean, I will turn on MSN or NBC or CNN, and I guarantee you, I didn't watch it. I really don't watch mainstream news that much anymore. But I guarantee you one of them had a diet show on today. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
But they will never talk about CERN like we're going to be talking about today, or some of the other more serious matters. And that is a fumbling of the football over and over.
I think what you said they flipped. I think you could even broaden that and say that it has totally flipped. In other words, if you want to call it the beginning as the founding, right, the framing, the government was the enemy of the people. But now we come full circle to where now the people have become the enemy of the government. And I think that's where we're at.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at.
Without a doubt. So back to this Facebook post.
Yeah.
So I show my son a little snippet of it. Nothing more than he would see on mainstream news or the videos that you just find when you're playing on the internet, or that he watches as his older brothers and sisters are watching their own videos online or movies. It's rated PG, rated R stuff in some cases. And I thought about it for a little bit, and I decided it was a decent time to, trying to teach him what to be thankful for. I mean, right now we live still in a world where things are safe, and, mostly our water is safe to drink, and the food is safe to eat, and there is some in the grocery stores, and bombs aren't dropping on us or anything like that. And it's not like that everywhere in the world. So I wrote a little comment saying, I decided to show part of this video to my son, and I had said that, I want him to grow up to be a good American, a good person, someone that cares, not someone with their head stuck in the ground like an ostrich. And it was a really moving moment for me, because after I did it, he asked me a few questions, and he was moved. And he's like, are those children, are they hurt? Like, are the bad people trying to get them? And I'm like, yeah, in a way. And I told him, because he was asking me what I was doing, and I said, I'm working. And so he was curious about it. He actually wanted to see parts of the Anatomy of a Great Deception, which I thought was pretty crazy for a kid his age. And he teared up, and he hugged me and said, I love you, or I'm proud of you. And I honestly, I can't even remember. Whatever I wrote in my Facebook post is what he said. But it was one of those two things, and the feeling was that I felt that he was proud of me, and I shared it. Because so much of the feedback we get stinks. Look, I mean, you're sitting here nodding your head.
It's all hate-filled. I mean, it is.
Not all of it.
I mean,
but there is a good portion of it. I mean, the stuff we talk about, it's scary stuff. It is, without a doubt. And, it doesn't, we used to be popular people. And we had tons of group of friends, and we still are to a certain extent, but things change when you go down this road, all right? Because you're not going to be really popular anymore. You're not going to fit into the regular world anymore, and we're more trying to wake people up to what the world really is instead of living in this kind of like this fantasy land. So for me, it was a good moment, and I shared it. Come home a few hours later. In fact, we even might have had a show that night. And I open up my Facebook, and there's a message from the wife of one of my best friends from college. And she ripped me a new one. And, it started off with, shame on you, Dave Hooper. How can you show these images to a kid? You're going to terrorize them. And she goes, what is your problem? You're a horrible father. You want to be like the dad that you want to emulate. You're missing it. And then you put up these banners bragging about yourself. And, dude, I have never, I was shaking when I read this thing. And I was literally, of all the comments I've gotten in this conspiracy thing, this one, maybe because it was so public and it was from my inner circle, and because for me it was so, frankly, hypocritical. And I'm just like, okay, number one.
How close was this friend?
Well, the husband is one of my best friends.
So he wouldn't be pissed if you smacked the crap out of her? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding.
Well, the funny thing is, so I'm like shaking.
Yeah.
And I call him up. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I should say this to you, but like I want to, like I'm seeing red right now. And he's like, why? What happened? What happened? And I said, your wife posted this thing on Facebook. And he's like, oh, not again. Like, so apparently that, she's done this kind of thing before. And he's like, what did the message say? And I read it to him. And he's like, oh my God, no. Oh no. Oh, Hooper, I'm sorry. No. He's like that, kind of laughing, but kind of serious about it. He gets, I'm talking to him while he's driving home. And a few minutes later, I get another message from her. My message to her right after I read that was actually very calm considering me, because normally I'd blow up at something like that. Had she maybe sent me a private message, it might have even been better received. But look, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. Maybe it was because it was personal that it literally was the worst conspiracy day I'd ever had. This isn't like a movie I took him to, like that's rated X or rated R, and I snuck him in and showed him. These are real people suffering for real, okay? It's not made up. It's the truth. And the reaction of you should be a good parent by shielding your child from that seemed off to me, because if you're going to at least say that, at least tell me that you've sent money to charities that are trying to protect these kids or trying to give them supplies in Syria, for instance. Because for me, it should do something to make the video not be real. Get the video off the internet, make it be untrue, not by shielding yourself from it, but by doing something to actually help stop it. And this is what I mean by, like, our country has their heads collectively. Not everybody, obviously. And every day, more and more people are opening their eyes to, the harsh reality of the world we live in. And the United States is a big island. We are surrounded by oceans, and it's all safe. We've, never really been attacked, quote unquote, except for maybe 9/11 and a few other examples throughout history on our own land. We've never had to worry about those kinds of things. And we walk around as if like we are never going to have to face anything like that. And I was just thinking, it's the people that did this sort of thing before me that opened up my eyes. This is why we have freedom in the first place. Like, how do you expect it to last if we turn our backs on literally a crime in progress? I mean, we laugh at Nazi Germany throughout the 30s, like, oh, what a stupid country. How did all those people get fooled? While we are following those exact same footsteps. And so, to answer your question, I had a great week other than that particular day. But after thinking about it, I do have a regret, and that is that I should have accepted the apology she sent. And I'm not mentioning any names, but you know who I'm talking about. And if you happen to be listening, which I don't think she is because she defriended me on Facebook, I'm sorry I did not accept. I'm sorry I did not accept your apology when you first put it through. I should have, instead of throwing more gas on the fire. But you gotta understand, you're dealing with someone that has opinions, and to me, it is like the way my dad used to talk about Jane Fonda. In fact, my old girlfriend's dad fought in Vietnam, and 20, 30 years after Vietnam, he was still pissed off because when his tour ended and he landed in San Francisco, he was spit on by war protesters. Now, all he did was go defend our country. It's not his job to decide political, what's right or wrong. He simply signed up because he was under the impression that it would be good for his country, and he just followed orders, which is what is the basic formula of any military unit. And I remember him telling me the hatred he had 30 years later of someone like Jane Fonda, who protested against the Vietnam War and would call her own soldiers baby killers and things of that nature. And crazy things happen in war. And I felt what he felt for just a moment, for like just a brief second. And it lingered with me this week. I got to tell you, it really did. So other than that, though, it's been a banner week, and I'm pumped up today.
You're a better man than me.
Yeah,
Why?
Sometimes,
Why do you say that?
Because I would have, it wouldn't.
How would you guys have handled that?
Well, I would have told her to mind her own flipping business.
Well,
this is my kid. I'm going to raise them how I want to raise them. Who are you to, does she have kids?
Yeah.
How old are they?
Oh, oh shit! You're putting me on this. Let's say 12, 13.
So she's got
11,
yeah.
8.
And
In that vicinity.
So they've never played a video game, or they've never watched something crazy on TV.
Well, yeah. Don't get me going.
Yeah, exactly. So no one's perfect. I'm raising my kid the way I want to raise my kid. When you come start paying my bills and changing diapers and feeding my kid, then you can have any opinion you want. Until then, sit and spin, baby.
Do you guys know the gesture he just made?
Yeah.
So, is that have you ever had to deal with something like that?
I've dealt with plenty of things like that, but in recent days, I would say, and what I mean by recent days is like maybe the last 18 months of my life. I've just tried to become like a duck, right, and just let all this crap roll off because it's just not worth it.
Yeah, that is
it's not worth it.
Easier said than done.
Oh, it's very, very difficult.
It was almost like a test. It's like
well, that's what that was, by the way. And
I don't think it was an accident. And I've had a couple like coming out of the woodwork.
Well, it's these are attacks, and not necessarily by the person that's doing it knowingly.
Careful, you're going to lose some. And I'm going to tell you another story in a minute, but I know where you're going.
You know what
that.
I mean? So, I mean, these things are coming because of what we're talking about.
Yeah, last week's show, the polarization of good and evil. And we're going to get deeper into that when we're into CERN, because there is absolutely something happen where there's something going on right now, and literally the light and the darkness are being divided. And I'm like noticing it in my friends. It is so it's all anecdotal, but I swear it is.
Expect more of it and get used to it.
So that you feel strongly about that?
Absolutely.
So I'm looking for that. Am I still looking for this thing on YouTube? Or?
I have it on YouTube. I was trying to convert
it,
but it won't. Yeah, it won't. It says, Darkest Side of CERN, Destruction of Souls, 38 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. So what does that mean? Are we going to be able to play it?
Yeah.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah, baby. Okay. That's good, because we didn't have enough to talk about without that. All right. We're under attack. Not the conventional kind where you think of armies showing up on your shores, but we are under attack, and it's more. It's kind of like how you boil a frog. Have you ever heard this?
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you tell us about how
you boil a frog, right? If you put him in the water and turn the heat on, that it's gradual and doesn't actually realize that he's being boiled to death until he's boiled to death, right?
Yeah, in fact, it was Sibel Edmonds, who was with the FBI, who, whistleblower. People always ask, where are all the whistleblowers on 9/11? Well, she's one of the hundreds of them. And she's now out there, essentially an activist, saying, hey, look, man, our government is, absolutely corrupt. And she has a website. In fact, Eric, you might be able to make sure that I got the right one, but I think it's called, oh boy, I'm going to mess it up, but it has something to do with the boiling frog. In fact, the boiling point of the frog, or something along those lines. Yeah, you throw a frog into boiling water, it's going to jump.
Sibel Edmonds?
Sibel Edmonds.
I got it right here.
Does she
it's called boilingfrogspost.com.
There you go.
All right.
So, and the behind that is the same concept we're talking about here, which is you throw you don't go from I Love Lucy to the Kardashians. Okay, you have to go through generations. You go through several different, and you introduce things slowly, and you keep turning the ship a few degrees. And next thing you know, hey, we're embracing that like it's cool.
Yeah, I think philosophically that's referred to as gradualism.
Oh yeah,
I think so.
Makes sense. That's exactly how it's done. And the same way you'd mentioned, you gradually turn up the heat of the water. Like you throw a frog into boiling water, he jumps out. It doesn't work.
It's hot.
But you do it gradually, and the frog never leaves. He just ends up cooking.
Right.
And if you like frog legs, it's a great way to cook them up, I suppose.
That's fresh.
So another thing that happened this week is another very dear friend of mine, and I'm not going to mention names. And I don't know if I told this to you, so don't give it away if you know who I'm going to talk about. I'm sure I mentioned it to you yesterday. He was talking to me, and again, these are some of the feedback we get from, because it's really easy to just Monday morning quarterback this stuff. And his comment was essentially, dude, you've got to tone down the references to the Bible. And I was just listening. This one I didn't get upset about or anything like that, because he called me privately, and I respect that. And he had his reasons, and he said, I really want to promote you as a 9/11 guy, but with the amount that you're talking about the Bible, like I can't promote you as a 9/11 guy. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I slept on it. And the next day I woke up and I was thinking, what's the whole purpose of this? And he was saying things like, you could have such a huge following because so many people have seen this movie, and you're a voice, quote unquote, in the 9/11 truth movement, and yada yada yada. And I just was thinking about it, and it did not resonate at all with me, because this may sound contrived, but I would rather have one person believe me and have it be the full truth than have 1,000 people follow me, pump up my ego, and be missing an absolute vital part of the picture as far as I'm concerned. If all of these roads did not lead back, it's not like, dude, we decided to just sell Bible stories or sell some religion. Literally, the tentacles of all the research that I started with, I know that you've done, that's where they lead back to.
Right.
That is where, and CERN is another. I've always been fascinated by astronomy and space and physics, and yes, I was into that stuff. I never knew until recently that it literally leads back to the book of Genesis. And, there is nothing new under the sun. I think that's a passage in that. Again, I'm pointing at that book again.
Yeah,
Bible.
It's always here, by the way.
And what good is it? I mean, if we miss the most important part of this whole kit and caboodle, who cares what we're saying? I mean, it's. I would do it for the good of my country, but now that I know the full, what I believe is the full truth, and I'm not. Again, I always say, don't believe me. Do your own research. Now, of course, embedded, under that umbrella is what is good for the country. I promise you, this country was founded. There have only been two nations founded under God ever, Israel and the United States. And no nation has ever flourished like the United States did. And it became the most powerful, wealthy nation that the world has ever known. And ironic that also happens to be one of the two nations founded under God. The other nation that was founded under God was actually brought back together against every possible statistical odd you could ever imagine. And I had a really good point that I was going to go off of that. Oh, and what we've done really, I mean, we used to be this. We used to be the type of people that were educated from within their own families, And it was done at a schoolhouse that sometimes also served as a church in all local agrarian communities. We, by and large, lived off the land, and then the Industrial Revolution hit, and then we gave away our ability to print money to literally, if you ask me, the devil's henchmen, the evil cabal that is called the Hidden Hand or the New World Order or the Synagogue of Satan, depending on what your reference is, the Illuminati for sure. That was in 1913. And, the downfall just continued and continued to the point where it's, now 1963, we've outlawed this book. Now, think about it. Why would they outlaw the Bible but not outlaw the Quran? I mean, just think about that one for a second. And then we flash forward. I read an article this week that there were a group of police officers in Texas who were reprimanded for having a Bible study during their lunch break. And basically the note was you can't even do that while you're on government property. So we are way off, if this nation was founded under God, and God is real, and we were great because of that, understand where we're headed. Now, you don't need to believe in God in what I'm saying, but we no longer, outside of a few banner sayings, a moniker that's on our currency, we really don't believe in God anymore. If you read the things that he cares about, the things he calls evil versus good, we have gradualism. We have gradually drifted so far off course that what is black is white and what is white is black. And there are a lot of people, I personally believe, that they may think they're okay with God based on the people they see around them. But you got to understand, when the harbor is draining and the water is sinking, all the ships in the harbor sink too. You can't tell the difference anymore. So if you look around at your social groups, at your peer groups, and your friends, even your own churches, the churches I used to go to, by those standards, I used to pat myself on the back and go, yeah, I'm a pretty good person over here. I think I'm in good shape. And then I actually, I had that moment where I really finally believed, holy cow, there's something about this book is real, that got me reading it. And then as I read it, I was like, holy shit, let's just say it. Because what were you going to say?
Well, I wanted to make sure I got the syntax correct. Because what you started off with is, basically tone down the Bible talk, right? That was kind of the...
And here we are talking about it. But
here's, because of the following, et cetera, et cetera. Here's why it's very important what it is that you're doing and what we're doing. Is because what good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? That's why we're not going to
it doesn't
listen to that.
All the accolade, someone could walk in and go, I'm going to make you, what were my dreams when I was young? I'm going to make you a movie star or the CEO of a $1 billion company or, all the, what my worldly dream. You could bring those in and march. None of them would matter anymore because now that I believe that the interdimensional space that CERN's trying to crack is very real, and what we're going to find there literally is I believe, other dimensions such as a heaven and a hell. And I fully believe now that we're not bodies that have a soul. We're souls that just happen to have a body, and we're going somewhere afterward. And I believe it so hard that, it doesn't, the president could walk in and say, hey, you want to be vice president? No, the answer would be no, I do not care about that. Obviously, the minute you start going down the 9/11 road, you're already heading into quote unquote not popular territory.
Sure.
So, and that's just that's a decision. I mean, some people are just that way. Some people would rather be accepted by the group and get pats on the back, but I would never trade that for an eternal future. Even a low risk possibility of it would scare the hell out of me. But one of the things I do want to caution against, and I'm seeing this more and more because some of our search engines are being reprogrammed. So as you're looking for things, when you do lookups for CERN, very often the very first search results you're going to get are something like from Popular Mechanics, who comes out saying that, in fact, I'm going to quote something that they wrote in here, assuming I can find it in the next. Here it is. Popular Mechanics. Now, I had a personal run-in with Popular Mechanics when it came to 9/11. Because I did my own research, obviously, on 9/11, and I'm like, okay, there's obviously this was a controlled demolition. I mean, you've got to be a total idiot, let me just say it, an idiot, to have seen the information and believe the official story yet, still. I mean, if you just look at any one of dozens of documentaries, hundreds, thousands even, wackos don't make thousands of documentaries. They just don't. They don't have the resources or the ability to do that kind of thing if they're wacko. What really would drive the manifestation of so much information that's counter to what the government's telling us is maybe truthfulness, because there is light in some people still. And Popular Mechanics came out and, they devastated the 9/11 truth movement early on because it was Popular Mechanics. And even me, I read Popular Mechanics as a kid. Until you find out, the editor they brought in to counter this story, he's coming right out of these Illuminati families. I forgot the guy's name. And he literally makes up a bunch of lies the same way that the two guys from NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, just boldly lying through their teeth as if it doesn't matter. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time telling a lie. It shows up. It's so uncomfortable. Your face gets...
There's a reason for that.
What's the reason?
Well, your heart is condemning you.
Yeah, maybe. I used to think it was... I didn't know what it was, but all I remember thinking is, just let me pull this one off so I don't get caught doing X, Y, Z, or whatever it was. And with Popular Mechanics, and again, they're mainstream media, and I came to realize, holy cow, there's nothing we can trust. I mean, along the way of getting a full understanding of 9/11, I realized that some of these institutions, some of the museums, and certainly some of these magazines that are really sort of outside, I guess, the mainstream media, but I'm like, just, holy cow, they're controlled as well, and they are corrupted. But here's what Popular Mechanics had to say about CERN. In fact, I pulled this off of Popular Mechanics' top 10 most ridiculous conspiracies, and CERN made the list. And now the minute you make Popular Mechanics' most 10 ridiculous conspiracies, I'm actually thinking all 10 of them are true. In fact, the one is that sharks are secretly spies underwater. That one I don't actually believe in. But the other 9, I'm like, I actually have seen a lot of evidence that could possibly. Here's what they had to say. Scientists were pretty much asking for it. A natural successor to Area 51, CERN's LHC, or Large Hadron Collider, is a secret underground laboratory that just begs conspiracy theorists to speculate wildly, and speculate they have. Conspiracy theorists tried to sue CERN in 2008. No, it was
actually... It was like Susie sat by the shore shucking she-shells.
I know, it's hard to spit that one out. It wasn't conspiracy theorists. It was actually physicists, Mr. Popular Mechanics. So they tried to sue CERN in 2008 for almost sucking the entire planet into a black hole, but another idea is far more creative. Turns out the occult scientists at CERN are building a stargate to revive Osiris, ancient Egyptian god of the dead. And they have photographic proof. A statue of the Hindu god Shiva stands at the entrance to the LHC. Put aside the fact that physics experiments can't bring back the dead, fine, but what the heck does a statue of a multi-armed Hindu god have to do with reviving Osiris? One of the largest Hindu sects in India considers Shiva their supreme god, and odds are that religious researcher at CERN decided to invite his lord into the lab. Admittedly, it made for a pretty interesting bring your god to work day. There's not a single scientific anything.
No.
That's just name-calling, and that's one of the common denominators. Now, this is a scientific publication, Popular Mechanics, supposedly being reduced to name-calling. Now, I'd like them to counter what we're going to talk about several not one conspiracy theorist, but we're talking about nuclear physicists, Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Here's some names you guys should write down right now, because these aren't conspiracy theorists. These are physicists, particle physicists, astrophysicists. These are all PhDs. I could just say doctor in front of all their name over and over and over and over, but let's save some time. Stephen Hawking, we've all talked about him. Does everyone know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is?
Just from you talking about him.
He's like the light-skinned black guy, curly hair. He's always on television.
He's been on the Big Bang Theory a bunch of times. He's the guy that debunked Pluto.
Yeah, exactly. You got him. Okay.
I know who he is.
Some of these names are lesser popular. Sergio Bertolucci. And by the way, anyone listening
He makes good wine.
And pasta should look up these names. These are scientists and researchers. Anthony Patch, Andy Parker, Otto Rossler. Another really interesting one, if we have time to get to it. This one is fascinating. Edward Mantil, who works with, I believe this woman is from Michigan State University, and maybe I did not have time to get to that when we were going over our research notes and our fact-checking today. But I believe she's out of Michigan State, a PhD. Her name is Sandra O'Reilly. Her story is unbelievable. If we don't get to it, you need to YouTube this. Stan Deyo, Tim Alberino, Stephen Quayle, Tom Putnam. I could go on and on and on and on and on. So Popular Mechanics is basically saying all these PhDs are crazy, and they're not refuting a single fact. All of these guys are sitting here talking about what the hell is really going on at CERN. And they're really concerned about it. Like, this is not a joke. And we're going to play a segment. Are we get about ready to do that?
Whatever you want.
How much time? Where are we right now?
Let's take a break. Come back. We'll introduce it and play it.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
That sounds really good. Dave, anything you want to say before the break?
No, that's...
I've been talking too much. My jaw is sore.
Go for it, man. It's good. We're good.
Then we're taking a break. We'll be back in a few minutes with get ready to stop your grinning and drop your linen, because this one is going to be fascinating. We'll be back in a few minutes down the rabbit hole.
Shop Amazon.
All right, we are back down the rabbit hole. Before we hear from this CERN, I guess I'm going to call him a CERN defector, and he goes by the name of Mike or Michael. And a lot of the scientists I just named are CERN defectors. And these guys, as they're out there, I mean, they're truly putting their life on the line when they're talking about this, if you ask me. There's a lot of dead, not just people at CERN, but biologists. And when you start to do the math on we're under attack, and this is going to come from many different directions, as was predicted. We were talking about last week, and then this week, it seems like evil is really manifested. So is good. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but this is polarization, and I think you had done.
Well, it's a key word, because actually a friend of mine sent me a link. It's not just people. I would say people like us, right? Okay, but a lot of people are talking about this kind of thing. But even a lot of people still glean to mainstream media for news and facts and etc. But what we're talking about, actually, I have a Washington Post article written by, and I'm so sorry if I hack this name. I don't mean to, but it's Niraj Chokshi, and I'm, again, sorry.
I think that sounds right.
I hope it is. I don't like to do that. But anyway, the title is the year of, quote, unquote, enormous rage. Number of hate groups rose by 14% in 2015. Now, I highlighted just what I thought was important because, of course, they can't just come out with, an article and not politicize it and make it ridiculous. But the facts that are in here are interesting. It says America is getting angrier. For the first time in 5 years, the number of hate groups in the United States rose in 2015, according to a new report from the Southern Poverty Law Center, a legal and advocacy group known, among other things, for monitoring extremist activity. The number of such groups spiked 14% in 2015, a year characterized by levels of polarization and anger perhaps unmatched since the political turmoil of 1968, the center said in the report on hate and extremism, released exclusively to the Washington Post on Wednesday. Now, that's this week, right? This came out. The other part that I highlighted here was swelling numbers of Ku Klux Klan chapters and black separatist groups drove last year's surge. It was a year marked by very high levels of political violence, enormous rage in the electorate, and a real significant growth in hate groups, said Mark Potok, author of the report. Racist extremists were responsible for the spike last year, the SPLC found. The number of KKK chapters. Now, this blew me away.
Once again, blame it on the white guys.
Well, and the black guys. I mean, it's
Eric,
it's the falsehood of fanning the flames of racism. I could do a whole show on this. But,
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, this stuck out to me that the number and Ku Klux Klan, for crying out loud, the KKK chapters in America more than doubled from 2014 to 2015, rising from 72 to 190. Black separatists.
How is that even possible?
Well, it just so happens to coincide with exactly what we're talking about here. The same time frame, the same, Black separatist groups also multiplied, rising from 113 in 2014 to 180 last year. And the number of black separatist groups was the highest of any year since at least 2000, according to SPLC data. The number of Klan chapters was the highest of all but 1 year, 2010, during that time period. Those numbers exclude white nationalist and racist skinhead groups. So you can only imagine what these numbers actually are.
Right.
Now, this is also interesting. For all of its effort at documenting hateful association in the United States, the SPLC noted that its 2015 count was likely an underestimate as extremists increasingly turned to the internet to congregate anonymously. Hate groups aside, the SPLC also documented a 14% swell in anti-government, quote-unquote, patriot groups, which is odd to me that's considered anti-government. But anyway, militias and others motivated by conspiracy theories. Those, quote, patriot groups are not necessarily violent or racist, but rather tend to fear and oppose a quote-unquote New World Order and be staunchly anti-government. The number of such groups, counted separately from hate groups, rose from 874 in 2014 to 998 last year.
Oh, that's more like truth groups, if you ask me.
So again, here even you have the mainstream media talking about the polarization, the anger of America, the rage, the this, the that, and it's exactly what we're talking about. And I believe that what we're talking about is ultimately the source.
Well, this is going to dovetail perfectly.
Yeah.
You mentioned 2015. I had mentioned a CERN scientist. I'm going to read. I would like everyone listening to go find. There was an article on Live Leaks. It came out July 24th of 2015. I'm going to read you the first few sentences of the article because this is what CERN guys are saying, and then we're going to actually listen to one here in a minute. This article was by Dr. Edward Mantill. Starts off, I am breaking international laws regarding privacy and secrecy by publishing this information. I'm not going to disclose my location since I know that any attempt to prove what I've seen or what I've been part of will result in my immediate and thorough extermination. My name is Dr. Edward Mantill, and I still am, a physicist at CERN, located in Geneva, Switzerland. I specialize in particle and subatomic research, focusing on quark interactions. In other words, I study very, very small particles and how they interact with one another at very high speeds. Until Thursday, January 15th, 2014, I was a normal scientist living and working on the CERN campus. I'm going to stop there, but I'm going to tell you that is one of the best articles I've ever read. So much so that I almost thought it was from a fiction writer. But the truth is, it is not. He is a real person. Now, we are going to hear from another CERN defector. Again, another person in fear of their life. His name is Michael. Can we hit play on this, Eric? Let's see if we're queued up at the beginning. I think he starts off right in the right place. This was off of a phone interview that would have been late last year.
Replicating. People want to understand what CERN is. If they would just indulge me for a little bit. they'll have a clear understanding of why they're doing it, what they're looking for, and what is the potential and the facts that will come out of these experiments. CERN, and amazingly, it won't come from the scientific community or anybody who has knowledge of physics. They will not tear it apart because they understand what I'm saying. So I'm gonna make this as basic as possible. I want you all to imagine, if you want to know what CERN is doing, I want you to imagine you come into a world and you find architecture all over the place, buildings and homes and houses, and you think they're beautiful and it's really a big discovery. You find out with the houses, you can house people. You can do many things with a house, with a structure. All of a sudden, after many years, you become curious and you say, what's holding all this together? And you begin to find not nails that you can take out, but glue that has bonded itself to the materials. And you become interested in that glue that's holding the structure together. And so you're fascinated by this glue, and you've tried everything to replicate it. You can't because it's hardened. Glue is hardened. You come to the realization the only way to find out how this glue is working is to break it down to its basic particles. And you have to have that glue in its former state, not the state after it's already hardened, right? So you don't want it in the cured state, the state that you can see. You want it in its initial state, which is a liquid state, before it hardens. And so CERN, basically, is a device that will allow them to examine particles in their initial state, not after everything is bonded together. That's a very simple way to look at what CERN is doing. They're trying to find the glue that holds everything together, is what they're doing. That's the purpose of CERN. Now, what has come out of CERN is called antimatter, which was first actually produced. It was first produced in 1955. And CERN is a very old organization, but it was produced in 1955, and they found positrons, which are anti-electrons. To understand what antimatter is, I'm going to have to explain the very bare basics of what matter is. And believe me, it's going to get very weird here shortly because you're going to begin to see exactly what they're doing. But you have to understand what you're looking at now. The matter and antimatter are in fact opposites. Now, the matter that we have in front of us, if you take a piece of wood, nothing happens. It's just a piece of wood. But if you set that wood on fire, you have caused a reaction. And then it's in a dangerous potential state. It's active. If you have a battery outside of your cell phone, it does nothing. You put the battery inside the cell phone, the electrons begin to flow. The electrons will flow from one place to another. Essentially, that's what electronics are, the control of electrons. They control the direction, the speed of electrons, which create tiny pulses. They flow or don't flow, flow or don't flow. Those are called gates. Those gates form computers. And with a computer, we can do fascinating things. This is why they did, in fact, take Nikola Tesla's findings, because he discovered some things with electrons and protons that were very fascinating. Electricity within itself is a visual observation of electrons and protons in their active state, non-controlled state. Antimatter is the opposite of the matter that we can control. Antimatter cannot be controlled. In fact, when they first produced antimatter, they had to have a facility to contain it, because unlike the wood, where you have to have a reaction to cause it to burn, antimatter, you have to have a containment to cause it not to burn. That's the only way they can store it, with massive facilities to store. Let me give you an example. In a nuclear bomb, it takes timing, which takes electronics, and the explosions have to be just right to cause a reaction. That's a nuclear bomb, like the Hiroshima bomb, which takes pounds of nuclear material to cause it to react. And it has to be very precise. Well, let's go the opposite. Let's say we had antimatter, correct? If we had 1 gram of antimatter, that would equal about 42 or 40, let's just say 45 kilotons of TNT, which is about 4 Hiroshima bombs. And it's already inherently unstable. It's unstable. The only way to harness antimatter is to contain it. And it takes very large and expensive facilities to contain just 1 gram of antimatter. Some have failed, some have not. If those containment devices fail, they cause megaquakes. That's what happens when they fail. Now, we're talking small, tiny drops of antimatter. I mean, just drops of raw antimatter. It's highly unstable. It has to be isolated from the rest of reality when it's contained in a literal sense. Now, given that this can be weaponized, which is true, there are other implications that the average person has not thought about. Our body is held together by that glue that they're searching for, that bonds matter together. Those who understand what's called the standard model, they have a pretty good idea of what would happen if the force table in the standard model is just an explanation of how all things work. You're dealing with matter and force, and they have categorized the elements of matter, everything we can touch and feel and observe, in what's called quarks, the building blocks, of protons and nuclei, and leptons, which are essentially, well, that would be like an electron. And then we have force. Force are lumps of energy that transmit the forces that bring matter to life. Like a photon, it carries the electromagnetic force. Without a photon, we couldn't produce motors or anything else. Without gluons, which carry a strong force, neutrons and protons would not be held together. In other words, the universe would not exist. And of course, you have your W and Z particles, which are for weak forces that govern radioactivity. So you have this standard model, and they have broken this down. But what they're looking for is a higher explanation of how everything works. This is the particle they're searching for. Now, they found half of it. They already found a component of it. That was the Higgs field. Now, the Higgs field is an explanation they found the traces of the Higgs field. They can now observe the Higgs field. The Higgs field is what is found wherever matter is not. In your room, the Higgs field is in operation. Listen, with the Higgs field, they can begin to alter reality as we know it. Now, a lot of people they can't capture that right away. But you have to remember our world is made up of matter. The antimatter is what we can't see, what we can't touch, what we can't feel, though we interact with it every day. A lot of people like to think of antimatter as the other dimension, which is the opposite of this dimension. It's an inconceivable place that is hostile inherently. It's not under control. It's very hostile. This dimension would be the more tamed dimension. Here's what they've done since the 1930s. Well, actually, since the 1800s. There was a group that studied nothing but the phenomena of paranormal activity, not like you've seen on TV, not like you've seen in Hollywood, not like anyone knows about. But they studied the science behind paranormal activity and have then defined that this is called a dimensional slip, where things can obviously interact with this world all the time. And they were wondering the interactions between known matter and that type of matter. But they also found with antimatter, this antimatter can be absorbed by any realm of paranormal activity. It is, in effect, neutralized and absorbed. So there's a physical effect to the spiritual world in antimatter. And often, demonic entities and all these other paranormal things are attracted to antimatter. They're attracted to it. For every gram of antimatter that's produced, and then it's bought into this world, when they produce it, it attracts things from another dimension coming here. What is CERN going to do? Is to allow humanity to produce pounds of antimatter. What's happening, that is the unseen portion of dark matter. And of course you have the angels which govern what that realm can and cannot do. It's not a, you know what, it's a shame, and I have to continue to say this, it's a shame that the Christian community cannot believe the Bible when it's talking about things like that, because it's going to cause them to be harmed. What they fail to adopt from the Bible, what they fail to believe, is going to harm them. It's going to harm them. They may not be lost in their spirits, but they're certainly going to have lumps all over the place. It's going to harm them. And I hope people have a general understanding of matter, which we can touch and feel and observe, and antimatter, which we cannot touch, feel, or observe. However, it's working in tandem with the matter, because everything is balanced, the subject of Lucifer in the spiritual sense, because God gives everything balance. Everything has balance. There is dark, there is light, there's good, there's bad. Everything has balance. I mean, God could have not. Why did he put the serpent in the garden in the first place? For balance. God can't give us an honest choice unless we're faced with an equal balance of obedience and disobedience, good and evil. And so Lucifer is used to be that balance of darkness with the light that we're given. And the reason why I say people are going to be harmed when they don't believe these things is because if they do not believe in the spiritual realm of our Lord, well, then they're giving the spirits authority to work in their lives. CERN has yielded so many results and gave a true definition of paranormal activity. It's beyond me that a lot of people cannot get this through the truth of the word. They can't. Antimatter is being pulled out of nowhere, out of this other dimension, which is nowhere but everywhere. In consequence to that, they found out antimatter has a specific type of energy signature that they can, in fact, detect. This is how is part of the process of pulling it out. Well, as it comes to find out, some of the not-so-good consequences of this process has to do with the human psyche. Stephen Hawking, he understands the implications of what could happen. He understands how it can affect the psyche. For a long time, Stephen Hawking did not believe there was a God. For a long time, he didn't. But you see, something is changing with him. He is beginning to see that everything is so precise, it's impossible for it to be happenstance. I mean, everything down to a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a meter is absolutely precise. And he's beginning to change his mind. It's what's happening to him. He's changing his mind. He is now beginning to entertain the idea that what people call divine is in fact done by some sort of architect they have no concept of. Now, with the general basis of what CERN is doing, that's the basic idea of what they're doing, and that's exactly what they're doing with particles. Here comes the other part that's not so good. This is why they have to do another set of it. Listen, it's not just one experiment they're about to perform. This thing is going to run 6 months continuously, colliding protons near the speed of light to analyze particles, exotic particles that are made at the beginning of the Big Bang. That's why they call it the Big Bang machine. It's the only way to observe these particles, which wink in and out of existence in, a fraction of time. A fraction of time. And the consequence of this search to gather more and more of this matter, by the way, they have a more efficient method of pulling out or gathering antimatter, which is why they need to know the properties of some more properties of this particle they have described. Once they have these properties, they will be able to extract as much antimatter as they desire efficiently. It's right now to obtain antimatter is very inefficient. It's very inefficient. In other words, to get a pound of it would take about 10,000 years at the current rate. It's just not going to work. CERN will allow them to do that probably within a week. But here's the consequence. They've observed the energy of both matter and antimatter. They found out that antimatter is intimately tied to every single life form on this planet. They found out that energy signature is the same energy signature in all life on this planet. All life, none excluded. Found out when any life form is in the presence of antimatter, the energy of the life form changes. The energy changes. I'll put this in basic terms. A person has both dark and light already in them. It's part of their makeup. It's what you can't live in a material world without antimatter. Nothing would exist. And so a person has both good energy, which would be this realm, this realm of matter, but they also have energy of antimatter. So they're connected. A person is connected to both realms at the same time on the energy level, and they don't even know it. They don't know it. And they have found, certainly, with all the experiments they have found out why paranormal activity exists. They know exactly what it is. They don't want to tell anybody. This is why they perpetuate foolishness on television. But every single person, every single life form is connected to that realm, that other realm, into this realm of reality all the time. Now, a person's thoughts, how a person feels, and doctors know about this too, how a person feels will determine which energy they draw from. You can draw from this realm, good realm, and you have positive results. That's called faith. That's why doctors believe in it. That's why they give out placebos. They know that if a person believes something is helping them, they have it within themselves to repair. They can command their bodies to be repaired simply based on belief. And people think they work. And people have recovered from cancer. People have recovered from back injuries. Quadriplegics have been repaired simply by their own faith. This other realm, because that energy is contained in another dimension, so to speak, that's the containment wall. But when a person draws that energy in, it is the opposite of this realm. In this realm, again, we have to light a piece of wood with a flame to catch it on fire. In that realm, it's already on fire. You have to contain it to see the wood because it's engulfed in flames. It's the opposite of this realm. When a person changes their emotional state, their energy changes, and they begin to draw their energy from this other dimension, this chaotic and violent and uncontainable place where they draw dark matter from, intimately linked. And it's in operation all the time. Now, the scientists, they are aware of this. Now, here's the other part that's not so comforting. On the spring equinox, forces change on the Earth, and they know this. They know that forces do change, which will, in fact, allow them to have better results. And believe me, it's timed perfectly. It is timed perfectly. With the basic introduction of what CERN is doing and what it is, and the dark matter and matter itself, now we get into the heart of the matter, of what's actually, there will be consequences. It's just that there have been consequences before. Nobody took notice. And the energy signature of dark matter, which, by the way, resides everywhere. But once you bring it into this realm, where we can actually see it, observe it, it attracts things from the other realm. Dark matter is tied to dark matter. Everything has a connection. Everything has a connection. That connection can never be broken by anything. If they bring dark matter into this realm, it's still connected to that realm where the dark matter came from. No matter how far away they put it anywhere, it's still connected. Because that realm is everywhere and it's still connected. Because it's connected, it effectively increases paranormal activity around where it's contained. And this is why they shift facilities of where they once kept dark matter in a college. I won't name it for the sake of the college, but the university, they had to move it to a deep underground facility because of what was happening to the people in the college. People began to have vivid dreams, nightmares. The violence began to erupt and vile things began to happen in those places. And it's because it's a chaotic piece of matter. It is just chaotic. And it's very difficult to contain something that is so powerfully chaotic. This is what an explosion is, by the way. When an atom bomb explodes, it releases chaos. Chaos in the form of chemicals, reactions, and everything is out of order. An explosion is the absence of order. That's what an explosion is. When you contain something, you're giving it order. So it's controlled. Here's the worst part. Understanding that dark matter is always connected to its source, which is that realm where the dark matter came from, the realm that's all around us. Just imagine that dark matter being the ocean, right? Imagine this realm being the submarine. We're all in the submarine having fun, and we're doing our thing, and we have disagreements here and disagreements there. And then we find out there's a hole in the sub. But the hole is not, we thought the hole was in the sub, but it wasn't in the submarine itself. It was, in fact, in the people. The people's water inside their bodies began to increase based on their emotions. Let's just say that. And the dark matter can then come into this realm through people. That's, in fact, what they discovered in 1950, that people can also produce dark matter by way of, it's very minute, it's very tiny, but it's measurable, it's quantifiable. In fact, they now know how much energy a person has to have before they go absolutely berserk. They also know how much of that energy signature a person must have before an entity from that realm can possess them, which also allowed them to understand that not everybody can be possessed. Not everybody can be, but the person has to be prepared to be possessed. They have to be, in essence, they have to be a portal themselves to be possessed. Not everybody can be possessed. And so, not to get way off target, but this dark matter is everywhere. You know what, all these things, here's what, I mean, it really gets to me, is that these scientists, over the course of many years, have quantified, or they have calculated these things. They have extracted the truth, the facts, yet the Christians don't believe it. And these crooked people in certain places have already been harnessing this power for themselves, and it's been effective every single step of the way. Yet the Christian community, for some reason, has a mental block on certain things of God, as though they have all the time in the world. I will say this, and then I'll get back to CERN, that if a person trusts their father, they don't need the father to explain everything. They just need to know that the father said it, and they'll go do it. If you tell a child, you need to go rake the yard, a child's not going to sit there and say, well, what brings you to that conclusion? A child's not going to do that. You'll just go out there and rake the yard. Over time, you'll find out why, but you have already performed what the Father said. But in the Christian community, we have to know why everything is before we do anything. In the scientific community, they see the facts. They know they don't understand it fully. And so they have experiments, and they learn along the way. In fact, they're obedient to their own disciplines, and we're not obedient to our own disciplines. So the problems about CERN, I know everybody's waiting on this. What could potentially happen from this? Well, they had another discovery, that dark matter causes other pieces of dark matter that they have contained to react. In other words, if you have a container, say you had a teaspoon of dark matter, and let's just say you had it in Pennsylvania, and somebody else had that same a teaspoon of dark matter in California, then as soon as the teaspoon of dark matter is exposed to the elements in Pennsylvania, it causes the dark matter in California to begin to activate. In other words, you lose containment in one place, containment in another place is going to be lost. It's going to be lost. So they're intimately tied together. Now, we've covered the fact that people have the signatures of the energy of dark matter in them and matter. So they contain both matter and antimatter, in a sense, the signature of energy. They're not put together. It's just that signature. And we draw upon those based upon our thoughts and what's in our minds and what's in our hearts, in a sense. With CERN, as they begin to collide these protons, dark matter is going to be produced in great numbers. I mean, in greater and greater numbers. Not only the matter, but the energy signature is going to also be released into this realm. You know what that's going to cause? It's going to cause the dark energy signature within people to begin to activate more and more. You see, it's going to become difficult for people to stay contained or controlled. In essence, they're going to become violent. They're going to have vivid dreams. The darkness within a person is absolutely going to begin to surface. And this is not theoretical. This is not some theory somebody thought of. This is absolutely 100% quantifiable, and it's happened before. It's going to happen in greater numbers this time. It will take effect. That's also been weaponized. Nobody knows this, and I probably won't be in trouble for this, but they have a weapon concerning dark matter that they can put within a country or a specific place to cause chaos. It's a weapon. They've used it before. They can unleash this, and it can cause chaos anywhere they want chaos to be rampant. Also, there's something very important about that. I know this firsthand. There are often times you have to partake in the weapons development program, and you become a rat, so to speak, in a maze to see firsthand what the effects are going to be. I'll describe something. People can believe it or not, but sooner or later they're going to experience it too. I am a Christian. I know that Jesus died on the cross for the remissions of sins, and now sits at the right hand of the Father, soon to be sent to us again. I rely on the blood of the Lamb. I am, as a soldier, I count my Lord and Savior as my commander. And so I am used to taking orders and to operate life or death in those orders that he gave. That's the only thing that saved my life one day. I was thrust into a position where I had to absolutely 100% fight to keep my flesh under full subjection. I could not believe the intensity of what was happening. My thoughts were all over the place. It was almost like every evil thing that was in me came to the surface with a snap of a finger. Irritation, aggravation, anxiety, fear, just anger, hatred, all sorts of things in the snap of a finger. The only thing that kept me still, the challenge was to be still. The only thing that kept me still, I had to absolutely 100% focus on the Lord. I had to focus on him. It's the only way to overcome that is to focus on him and place the flesh under subjection. If a person's out there and they say, well, I have no power to control myself. Yes, you do. You don't want to control yourself. Believe me, that power is within you, is given through the Holy Spirit. I felt the power, the protective power, the blood of the Lamb and the Holy Spirit during that test. I was amazed. I didn't know this could be harnessed in that way. I did not know, but it happened. And this was a weapon. This was a mild weapon. And you have to cling, people have to cling to the Word of God and His promises. Most importantly, His instruction. You know, not one time when I was in that test, I didn't think about His promises. I thought about His love. That's what I thought about. And when I began to think about His love, something happened within me. Everything came under subjection as though it took no effect. That's what happened. They found the force that holds the dark energy or the dark matter away from this realm. They call it the wall. There's another name for that. A name of which that those particles they're going to find, they found part of it. They're going to find the other pieces that are in that wall. And when they find the other pieces to this wall, they will then be able to undo that wall. There's another name for that wall. The veil. We call it the veil. It holds back that realm. They found out what's holding back the dark energy from, because it would be absolutely destructive if the two met. But they found out. Now with this as a weapon, there is no counter weapon to this. China is building an LHC facility. They're building a particle accelerator. There are, to present day count, about 14 particle accelerators in existence. 14, not just one. All the countries are vested in the CERN facility. Every single last country. But the United States, we have 3 facilities here. 3. I can't tell you where they are. One they began to build, but they couldn't, but they went ahead and built it anyway. It's in one of the biggest states in the United States, and it's there and it's operational. It's also going to be powered up during this time. I'm saying this because when this thing does power up, the immediate effects are not what I'm worried about. That's not my concern. The psychological effects on people is going to become quite evident. And I know that people will come under some strange attacks, some strange occurrences and incidents. I know that the only way they can be protected from such things is their unqualified belief in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You can't fake it. There is no substitute. People know if a person is real or not because they emit a different energy. That energy is that wall that this other realm cannot breach. It can't breach it. And it's absolutely going to take effect. The collider, think of a collider as hundreds of nuclear explosions taking place within 1 second, and they're containing it. It goes beyond fusion. It's in a realm by itself when they collide protons. They are going to find these particles, and within months, they're going to put into motion what we talked about today, and people are going to feel these effects. And then this other realm is going to begin to spill over in multiple places, everywhere. Violence will increase. The crucial side of this is that with this show coming up, people are going to realize, all too painfully, what we've talked about today, but they have to start now. They really have to. They can't make excuses for their flesh anymore. They cannot make excuses for their emotional state anymore. They're going to, if they love the Lord, if they truly want to be with Him, if they can recognize His love for them, they're going to have to fight for it today. They're going to have to fight for it every single moment. They're going to have to keep this negative energy away from them. They're going to have to immerse themselves in the truth of our Lord. That's the only way they're going to be able to survive. You know, in this time that's coming, which is coming quickly, I mean, like within weeks, people are going to be thrust into, they're going to have ideas and things that they didn't think they had. Now, some people may say, well, you know, all my thoughts are my own. Then why would God say, take captive your thoughts? Why would He say that? Why would He say, die to your flesh daily? Why would He say the flesh and the spirit war continuously? Why are those things said? Because we have the power to overcome our own flesh, because the darkness in this world is about to be pulled out of everything. Everything with darkness in it, that darkness is about to surface in a way that no one ever forecasted or thought possible, but it's absolutely going to take place. And the only way a person can overcome this is through the true power of the Holy Spirit. And to stay within the blood of the Lamb, there is no hypocrisy in purity. There is no hatred in purity. There is no accusation in purity. And people need to be in that purity, in truth, not acting like they're in the purity. They have to be there. It has to be in their hearts. And they have to do everything they can do to get a heart transplant right now so they can be strong enough to endure. Because we all have to finish this race. None of us knows when we're absolutely going, but I, for one, intend to finish this race, and I'm trying to sound an alarm that something very different is going to be all too evident to everybody who believes in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And without Him in truth, they're not going to make it. They will not make it without Him in truth.
Very interesting from our friend Michael.
Heavy.
Ex-guy at CERN. And it puts into scientific terms what at least I've been noticing, which is the polarization of good and evil. And, it's not like we read some passage in the Bible and then go looking for something to authenticate it. It's the opposite.
That's an important point that you just made. This is a key. That's a key point.
I always had the impression that people just grew up believing the Bible and then they defend it like crazy, even if some of the things in there were crazy. But the more I research, the more crazy reality is, and it's tied back to a lot of these warnings. And we touched on it last week. We're not going to be able to get into it so much today, but there's a belief on this level, but I'm a firm believer that what was talked about in the Tower of Babel, in fact, what's interesting is in ancient Sumerian writings, B-A-B-I-L-I-M, Babelim, was a word meaning doorway to the gods. Interesting that was what the tower was ultimately named. And that is right out of Sumerian writings. And, a lot of the scientists we talked about, another one is Andy Parker, doctor. He's a professor of high-energy physics at Cambridge. He's quoted as saying, what you'd expect is that as you reach the right energy, you suddenly see inside the extra dimensions, and gravity becomes big and strong instead of feeble and weak, because gravity is actually a very weak force. And it's on many levels. I know we're taught that gravity is what keeps the planets in orbit, but if you listen to particle physicists, they talk about how it's actually electromagnetism that does. And if you think if there was like a very dense basketball in Los Angeles and we put a little pea in Detroit, you're going to tell me that the gravity from that basketball is what keeps the pea, this little green pea in perfect orbital balance? There are so many questions that, for me, this is where it's almost like an adventure, a scientific adventure. But Andy Parker goes on to say there could be a whole universe full of galaxies and stars and civilizations and newspapers that we didn't know about, which would be a big deal. There was another article published in the Telegraph in 2008 titled "Time Travelers from the Future Could Be Here in Weeks," coinciding with the launch of the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC. Many comments about the potential of this device creating wormholes are real. There's a Professor Arafeva and Dr. Volovich. They also, again, these are PhDs, much smarter than I, talking about how what they're doing in Switzerland can create wormholes so as to allow a form of time travel. And time is it's a malleable dimension. It's just one it's easy for us to change height, breadth, and width. It's time has been, in a sense, we're on a timeline, and it's hard to conceive of even going back in time. But that's what we're talking about here, which is, it is mind-boggling. These two scientists go on to say, that LHC could create wormholes, allowing a form of time travel. We realized that closed time-like curves and wormholes could also be a result of the collision of particles. And I think I mentioned that an article in ScienceGuardian.com last week. An article is titled "CERN Challenges the Gods, little g," that there are apparently 3 dangers inherent in the CERN insistence on going full speed ahead, despite all the warnings from the entire scientific community. Number 1, the stranglets turning the planet into a smoking asteroid the size of a baseball park. 2, a micro black hole swallowing the Earth from the core outwards. If not the sun and or the generation of a huge amount of energy equivalent to a thermonuclear bomb every second. And like we were just talking off air, they want to make pounds of this stuff. A gram, which would fit on my fingertip, is exponentially more powerful than what we dropped on Japan in 1945. And these guys know what they're talking about. I can't sit here and say I completely understand the science. It would take years to really get into it, but as a conduit of what they have to say, and with a little bit of understanding, this is beyond scary stuff, and it's very real. In fact, there's a company. If anyone's interested, look up a company called Thunder Energies. They're publicly traded. They're an over-the-counter stock. Their symbol's TNRG. They recently developed a visionary device using concave telescope lenses as opposed to convex, which allows them to detect invisible entities in our terrestrial environment using what's called the Santilli telescope, which uses, again, concave lenses. They've got a trademark and patent pending, and you can look that up as well, Thunder Energies. I don't know if it was the CEO or head of their science program came out, and his name escapes me. I'm looking to see if it's in here. Let me just read what he said. This is actually printed off of their annual report. Thunder Energies Corporation has previously presented confirmations of the apparent existence of antimatter galaxies, antimatter asteroids, and antimatter cosmic rays detected in the tests that they had run. In this breaking news, Thunder Energies presents evidence for the existence of invisible terrestrial entities, also known as ITEs, of the dark and bright type. He goes on to quote, "This is an exciting discovery. We do not know what these entities are." Well, lots of people do, but scientists are sometimes the last to learn. But when information and data is shoved in their face, they get it pretty quickly. Anyhow, he says, "This is an exciting discovery. We do not know what these entities are. They're completely invisible to our eyes, our binoculars, and our traditional Galileo telescopes. But these objects are fully visible in the cameras attached to our Santilli telescopes." The CEO, Ruggero Santilli, I guess is his name. And you can get technical information about it in an article titled "Apparent Detection Via New Telescopes with Concave Lenses of Otherwise Invisible Terrestrial Entities, ITEs." And this is in a peer-reviewed journal. And that is something I didn't know what that meant until I was in college. But anything that is put in a peer-reviewed journal is vetted by other scientists. It's out there for critique. I mean, there's been hundreds, if not thousands of hours of research behind it. And, no quote-unquote wacky conspiracy theorist is going to be able to print anything that isn't backed by factual evidence. And you can find that in the American Journal of Modern Physics. So these things are, I guess these elements of our reality they're manifesting. And it's happening all over the place. And if you think about it, Michio Kaku, he's the physicist with the
Gesundheit.
Thank you. He's the guy we see on TV. He's got all gray hair now, astrophysicist. And I remember he once talked about how they've, through string theory, again, this is analysis of the hypersmall, quarks, WIMPs, weakly interactive. See, that's why I shouldn't even be talking about this stuff. My point is, he talked about how we have mathematically figured out that there are 11 dimensions. And he equated them to like drapes that sometimes come together and they like flap against each other. And it's interesting, but I'd mentioned several shows ago Nachmanides, who was a 11th century mathematician who somehow, just by reading the book of Genesis, and I have no idea how he figured this out, other than there are multiple layers of meaning in, again, I'm pointing at that book. And he also had theorized that there are 10 dimensions. This was in the 11th century A.D., 1,000 plus years ago. And modern day scientists are re-arriving at that conclusion. But if you think about it, again, I like the simple metaphor approach. And you get, let's say, 3 sheets of paper together. And if our reality is that middle sheet of paper, what CERN is doing is we're poking a hole through all 3 sheets with a pencil. And that is allowing essentially an access point for the other sheets of paper, i.e. the other dimensions, to be able to access this dimension. Which, again, that was predicted thousands of years ago. And it seems that there's been a lot of historical writing about that very dynamic happening, especially when you look back and you figure out that the Sumerians, they were early to document things, and they were, the Tower of Babel, it was the doorway to the gods. And it's one of the many, not only, but one of the many reasons that a lot of modern-day researchers that have finally opened their eyes are like, holy cow, we are literally playing with fire. Literally. And these things are manifesting themselves. And if you've heard these shows, you certainly know that for whatever reason, whether it's their doctrine or some cosmic law, or they like to mock humanity, they broadcast their intentions and what they're doing in a variety of ways. And they typically will do it through large ritualistic events. Events like, if you do any sort of research on, for instance, the Olympics and the Illuminati, you'll see the symbolism oozing out all over the place. And another place that is often used is, believe it or not, in Super Bowl halftime shows. And I think, Dave, you had done some...
Well, I actually stumbled upon it because I was kind of thrown back a little bit by all the attention paid to the Super Bowl halftime show, saying that, pointing out all the racist symbolism, and the most interesting breakdown that I've had on it that I found was from a YouTuber named C.Irvana, E-R-V like Victor, A-N like Nancy, A. Not saying this is not my, I did not come up with this, and I'm not saying she's 100% correct. I just found it very interesting. And it leads to the prideful boasting that clearly goes on. But her breakdown on it was that the symbolism on the stage was actually a wormhole, which is a pathway to the Luciferian light, which is the access to the 5th dimension, which is essentially CERN's mission. And she goes on to say that Chris Martin, I believe his name is, from Coldplay, was off stage, but returned to the center of the wormhole, which is filled now with the Luciferian light. And after Martin's dance, Bruno Mars and Beyonce, along with all the other dancers, and they're all wearing black, and this has been attributed to some Black Panther nonsense to keep fanning the flames of racism that we need so much. But actually what was going on is they were portraying the birth of dark matter once the wormhole was open, born into the world by accessing the fifth dimension. They moved to the center with Martin, who was purposely wearing white, which was personifying light matter, which only encompasses about 5% of the universe. 95% is dark matter. So it was kind of illustrating how we're outnumbered. None of the other symbolism that was there matters, according to this person. The wormhole opening, CERN's door, if you will.
And that was what was on, because I saw it. It looked literally like the wormhole we've seen on television shows and sci-fi. You could see it literally.
It's clearly what it was if you apply this to it, right? I don't know what else it would be. Of course, the rainbow colors could be, it could be construed as like the I don't even like using the acronyms, but the whole gay agenda they claim exists, and the whole Black Panther racism stuff they claim exists. But I think her breakdown was very interesting. Had nothing to do with any of this other stuff that had to do with hate. It may actually have to do with actual reality. In fact, CERN scientists themselves made a short film called Symmetry, and they actually name the opening of this fifth dimension supersymmetry. They made a short film about it, which shows the same occurrence, which is the collision of light and dark particles. So you can find that on YouTube as well. And they're basically trying to get to the fifth dimension.
And it sounds like they're going to succeed. So I'm going to leave you with a passage, Luke 21:26. This is an unfulfilled prophecy stating, people will faint from terror, apprehensive of what is coming upon the world, for the heavenly bodies will be shaken. And we're not trying to scare people, but there are some people that get nervous when there's just a tornado around, like my mom. My personal feeling is, be prepared just in case. Let's hope it never happens, but if it does, I'd prefer to be one of the ones that are at least mentally prepared for what is going on, so we are not having heart attacks, as is also predicted, for fear of what we see. Don't mean to scare you guys. We just want you guys to be ready, and hopefully we're wrong. But there again, if you can prove us wrong, please do, because I will be heading to the next party, first one available. Until next week, God bless everyone. This has been Down the Rabbit Hole with Dave and Dave. Howard will be back next week. Eric, thanks for manning the ship, my friend.
Oh, shizzle.
Cocktails at McNo's.
You know it.
Peace.
Peace out, everybody.